Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Naomi Osaka, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. I'm very, very excited because today we bring you an exceptional guest, an entrepreneur, investor. His name is Mark Rampolla, and he's CEO of ZICO Coconut Water. His bio is absolutely incredible. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he built a multi-billion-dollar coconut water brand, and he actually sold it to Coca Cola, and then a couple of years later repurchased it. So he will share today his exciting story and his journey with us. So please help me welcome Mark to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Very wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Mark, for your time. So I always like to start the episode with asking, how did you become an entrepreneur? Was this something
Yeah.
always your journey, or were you working in corporate? How did you started building businesses?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's definitely not always in my journey. There were no entrepreneurs in my family, no real business people in my family at all. And I thought the way to, kind of be successful, make an impact, have a life, make money was in the corporate world. So after college, though, I will say, after college, I did have an adventure spirit. So I joined the Peace Corps, a volunteer organization in Central America, which is where I first discovered coconuts. Years later, though, got a graduate degree, an MBA, and had a corporate job. But probably after about 7 years in the corporate world, I kind of started to realize this is not what I want. And I started to meet a lot more entrepreneurs, get to know a lot more entrepreneurs, and I thought I wanted to try my hand at that. So I quit my job and started Zico with no entrepreneurial experience beforehand at all.
So how this idea, so Zico was your first business, right?
Yes.
So how did this idea came? You were in the United States, right? Like you said, you were in Central America. Like how did this whole idea came to life?
Sure. Yeah. So I was living at the time in El Salvador in Central America, and the business I was running was a U.S. corporation that sold packaging to beverage companies. So mainly paper packaging. And so, I got to know the beverage industry as a supplier. So it started first with the idea of becoming an entrepreneur. So I looked at a lot of different ideas that fit my personal lifestyle. And this is one of the things I found to be very valuable and I recommend to people is, start with what's important to you, what really your values are. So for me, that was health and wellness, interested in sustainability. I led a very active lifestyle. So I started looking at businesses in that realm. I was very interested in keeping ties to Latin America. So I was looking at natural products out of Latin America. Some of it was food and beverage, some of it was, clothing or other things. But I drank coconut water all the time. And in the beverage industry, I was sort of studying the trends. So I saw better for you, healthy brands beginning to get traction. This is back in 2004. And so nobody was drinking coconut water. There were no real coconut water brands except for some of the legacy canned brands. But the big idea was, wait a second, people are turning to health and wellness products in general, specifically beverages. And coconut water is not there. Why not? So the big aha moment for me was, what if we could bring this healthy, natural, amazing product that you know and love so well, to the rest of the world, right? Known and loved by a billion people in the tropical world, but not in the Western world, including the US. So that was the idea that became Zika.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us a little bit more. What are some challenges you had when you started? Obviously, it was maybe something new and with food and beverage, of course, and in American market, USA, right? There's so many approvals you have to go through. So was it a
Yeah.
long process to, set up and everything just to start, right? Not to talk about sales and marketing later on, but how was the starting point for you?
Yeah, look, it took probably a year of nights, weekends, and vacations where I was researching regulatory requirements, figuring out how to import from at the time we were producing in Brazil, how to set up the entity to be able to operate in the U.S. And the U.S. is a great place to do business, but one of the challenges is it's so easy to start But the particularly with the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, food, and anything that falls under those regulatory requirements, the game is basically go ahead until you make a mistake. And so you get started until you trip something. And so one of our biggest challenges was we thought we did everything right, but all of a sudden we were one of the first companies to start importing not just pallet loads of coconut water, but container loads, which must have tripped some switch in the FDA to say, oh, wait a second, we need to check the documentation. So we had a documentation error, no quality problems at all, that put us out of the market for 3 months because our producer in Brazil hadn't done their paperwork right 5 years earlier. So I strongly recommend that people do your homework, take the time to do the preparation. It's easy to start and have some missteps along the way. So that was a painful lesson that didn't become true until clear until after we launched. So literally within 6 months of moving my family back to the States, having launched, we had to withdraw from the market, go through a voluntary recall, and wait 3 months to get product back on shelf.
And once you were in the market, I love that. I mean, thank you for sharing. So once you were in the market, what was your strategy? Was there no coconut water at all? What was your marketing message to, in general, start promoting this? What was
Yeah.
your angle that really worked, obviously, for you to come to billions of dollars?
Right. Well, what worked mainly was well, finding what worked was a process. And I've seen this across so many businesses that I've invested in or looked at is we went through a process of trying to get clarity on who exactly is the consumer we want to target, what message really resonates with them, and how do we get consistent repeat engagement from them, regular usage from them. So we started testing in New York because you can reach a lot of different consumers in a big city like New York, and tested in gyms and fitness centers with Latino market and natural food consumers. But where we really found the most success was hot yoga. At the time, that was taking off, becoming very popular. And coconut water and ZICO specifically sort of fit the bill of it's active, it's 120 degrees, it's 90 minutes at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's hot, you're sweating. That consumer base has no interest in electrolyte, in Gatorade. Many of them have traveled to places like Zanzibar or Central America, so they're familiar with coconuts. And then we got very clear on the positioning. This is first and foremost, a post-workout recovery drink. And we got the message to be very clear even for people that aren't familiar with coconut water. I can probably remember it now. All the electrolytes of five major electrolytes, more potassium than a banana, and great for hydration and replenishment post recovery, right? So very simple, clear message. And so I find that no matter how big the category, the industry is, every business has to start with something very specific. Red Bull was about energy. Even Facebook started with a very narrow market. Connect the Harvard incoming class, then the Ivy League, then expand beyond that. So for us, it took a little bit of time, but once we landed on that sort of post-workout recovery for yogis, then we had a place to build and we could expand from there.
I love that. I love that. Like discover a very specific market and a specific niche.
That's right. Inch
Yes.
wide, mile deep, get into your consumers' daily life. So our goal was each one of those, once we kind of nailed on the yogis, we wanted to be present when they were doing their yoga, present after the yoga, present where they shopped in the local store, be in the media they were reading. This is pre-social media, but nowadays it would be hit them with social media. But even brands we work with today that are completely digital brands do a lot of physical activities sort of in market to sort of reinforce what people are seeing online to see it and experience it physically.
Yeah. So I want to ask you with everyone who is building obviously some kind of product, you have to keep the cost low and you saying you guys produced and packed in Brazil and you imported. So how did you manage what are some things that you had to learn or look at it is very important because sometimes this is a challenge, right? Keeping the cost lower. So obviously retail price is also affordable and to the global market. What are some things that you
Yeah.
guys did to do the keep the cost low?
Look, there's no substitute for doing your homework, doing the math, getting very clear on what the costs are, what you pay, every step along the way, importer, broker, distributor, to truly get a landed cost, and then understand the retail market and those prices. And I see businesses get crushed on this all the time. And we struggled with this early on, but I think we had done enough homework to know where we could be. We were able to position it reasonably premium, but still somewhat accessible. But one of the mistakes I think a lot of businesses make is they talk about, well, when we get to scale, we'll have better margins. And I don't buy it as an investor. I don't buy it. I want to see it today because if you can't figure it out now, I'm not talking about the first literally 0 to 1 product, right? But if you're doing a couple $100,000, certainly at $1 million plus, you better understand your cost structure, right? You want to see improvement beyond that. And the exact margins depend on the industry, right? Right, whether it's beauty or food or beverage. But the reality is that business is expensive and you need margin. If you
Yes.
can't get at least a 50% true gross margin on a product, you're in almost any industry, it's going to be tough. And if you can get 70 plus percent, then you've really got something that's interesting. We didn't have that, and that made it difficult for many, many years.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is the challenge where I see, like you said, and I see also from investor point of view, right? Investors always want to know the numbers and how much the production costs because that's if your production is too high, of course you have to put the margin to earn a profit, and then it might not be sustainable. And this is a challenge with the product business I see very, very often as
Yeah,
well.
and what I would say is in any product business as well, you got to make trade-offs, right? I see so many entrepreneurs that are trying to do everything. Organic, fair trade, perfect ingredients, recycled packaging, fair, perfect producer. Like I'm sorry, consumers make trade-offs all the time. So you've got to be very clear. What is the value proposition you're selling? Will people pay for it? And what are the trade-offs? What are the things that are must-haves? And what are the things that are nice to haves? And what are the things that you don't need at all, right? Similarly with sort of the story people tell on packaging, right? There's a couple key messages you can get. And it's the same in service businesses as well, right? What really matters? What's the differentiator that makes a consumer, or a customer pay that value, and what's the stuff that's sort of less important to them, then you can deprioritize that and save money.
Yeah, I wish now I had a fresh coconut because you have the bottle of your coconut water. I should
Nothing
have
like the
fresh one from
fresh.
the tree. I'm not
uh,
prepared for this episode today at all.
you're making me jealous. You're making me. Not California. California has a lot, but not coconuts.
And very affordable here, right? Three coconuts for $1. So
Oh, amazing.
anyways, thank you, Mark. So I want to now just to ask you a little bit. You decided in 2013, right, to sell the company to Coca Cola. And what made you decide to sell? I mean, you build it.
Yeah.
Was it, you wanted to exit, get your cash, super happy about that? What was the decision to sell?
Yeah, but look, for better or worse, that was my vision from the beginning. Before I even launched, the vision was to sell to Coca Cola. And at the time, I thought, hey, that's a great dream for me to, earn money, for my investors to earn money. And I really thought, hey, how incredible to help Coca Cola. So this is the ignorance at the time. I'm going to help Coca Cola figure out how to make billions selling something healthy, right? But it's a beautiful youthful dream, right? A naive dream. But I stuck to that, built to that, and so when that opportunity came, I took it. Now, Coke had always actually made some investments early on, so there was a path for them to potentially do that. So I knew what that game was, and so I had no regrets about that at the time. And really to this day, it was the right decision at the right time. My view was, hey, we took it as far as we could. Now it's their job to go, realize the full potential that ZICO has and hopefully scale to be, billions globally.
So then after acquisition, was it 7 years later you bought your company back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Share with us that story, that decision. What led to that?
Sure. So I had, as far as I was concerned, I was done with Zeke. I was done with coconut water. I took some time off and then, kind of recovered myself, reconnected with my family, wrote a book about the whole journey called High Hanging Fruit. And then I became an investor. I became an angel investor, investing in about 40 different companies individually. And then I became a professional investor. First, I started a firm with some partners called PowerPlant Partners to invest in plant-based. Now we're called GroundForce Capital. So we became an institutional investor. We have a $500 million under management. And by this time, I have a partner, a very professional team. When we get word that Coca Cola post COVID is focusing on their core and selling down or shutting off anything that's probably under a billion or revenue or so. And so, we took a very critical look at Zico. This was no longer personal, right? This became professional to say, is there an opportunity? Do we believe this? And the reality is, I think Coke perhaps only believed Zico could go so far. Coconut water could only go so far. We saw bigger opportunity than they did. And we realized they didn't properly manage it in their system. They didn't give it the attention it deserved. So through one of my funds with a group of investors, including Jesse Itzler is involved in this again, and his wife Sarah. We bought the company back, and so I'm officially. You mentioned earlier, I'm not the official CEO. I'm not the CEO at all. I am the chairman of the board. We have one of the things I made sure is we put a world-class team in to run it, even better than I am. That is scaling it back, and so occasionally in life you get a second chance to get things right. And there's a lot I think we did really well, and there's a lot I wish we had done differently. We get a chance to do it again.
Yeah, and I mean it's a really interesting story, and like you said, not just emotionally, but makes sense business wise. And you guys know the market, and you build it. And sometimes big corporations as Coca Cola, for them this is actually something that brings small revenue, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a big fish for them, and they did
Mhm.
not put so much attention. So where is Zico now, and what's the plan for
Yeah.
Zico in the
So,
future?
so we don't release our sales information, but we're getting really close. I'd say in maybe not in 2025, but in 2026, we will surpass the level of revenue at which I sold the company the first time. So we're scaling back fast, and the brand is performing very well, predominantly in the US today, but we'll start to look in internationally. We did have a sizable distribution in the Middle East and in Europe, and we'll begin to explore that again. But the company's doing great. One difference is Coca-Cola was invested in about 2009. So from 2009 to 2013, the objective became make sure it works, build it to work for Coca-Cola. And that worked. This time we're building it to last. So this business is going to be built to last forever and to truly be a billion-dollar brand. It didn't get there under Coca-Cola, far from it, in fact. And that means whether we own it forever, whether we sell it, whether we take it public, whether we partner with someone, we don't know yet, right? But my view now is, the sort of yoga phrase I use toward it in business is non-attachment to the outcome. Do great work now, build a great business, and the future will take care of itself.
I love it, Mark. So I want to wrap up this episode asking you maybe for a final advice to everyone listening, something we didn't mention. Everyone who wants to build a business and do it successfully, maybe something that helped you grow through tough times. What is an advice you have for entrepreneurs listening?
Yeah, one thought that's been on my mind recently, particularly in this second chance around with Zico, is I think there's this myth most entrepreneurs have, right? Have a great idea, work really hard, build a great business, make a lot of money, and then you're free. Then you can travel, enjoy your life, take care of your health, build your relationships, all that. I see now the myth of that. And I believe now there's no better place to focus on your freedom, what you really want, than right here, right now. And that's actually a better way to build a business. Because when you're present and in choice and in a state of freedom, every meeting, every conversation, not doing it because of the future outcome, doing it because it's what you want to do right here, right now, you actually achieve better freedom and more joy in the here and now, and you have a better probability of a good outcome. Like when I think about how much I was working towards something, I wasn't even present for a lot of the ride. And I actually think I would have had an even better outcome had I been more present. So that's what I'm really focused on now is all that it takes to bring myself back to presence, back to freedom, right here, right now, and I'm seeing that delivers even better results, and I'm happier and enjoying the ride much more than I did first time around.
I love that advice. Really enjoy the journey and yeah, be present to now and today and free today. You're already doing what you want to do.
Today.
Outcome will follow.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Thank you, Mark, so much for being here today and thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
I want to thank the listeners for being here, for listening, and please go on and connect with Mark Rampolla on all social media platforms. Go and get his book as well. You will for sure get so much valuable information. Thank you for listening. Please go subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Download the episode, give us some likes and hearts, and share with at least one person that's going to benefit from this information. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.